And we'll start with invocation. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this wonderful day today and for giving us the opportunity to represent the community. As we gather here, help us to work together in the spirit of true charity, provide the wisdom and understanding to make the best decisions for the appraisal district. And Father, we ask for healing and a speedy recovery for one of our fellow board members, Jerry Garcia. We ask all these things in your holy name. Amen. Pledge allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all.
Texas pledge.
Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Elias, are you going to handle the roll call?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Jerry Garcia, Chair. Luis Elizondo, Vice Chair.
Present.
Leo Gonzalez, Secretary. Devin Bakta.
Here.
Hi. Deanna Havlin. Caitlin Shoup. Gabrielle Hillfold.
Yes.
Susie Sullivan.
Here.
James McGill.
Present.
John M. Cudd.
Here.
Ed Bennett.
Here.
Kevin Kieschnick.
Here.
Ronnie Canales, Chief Appraiser.
Here.
Leticia Roberts, Assistant Chief.
Here.
Melissa Vela, Attorney.
Here.
Terry Nowak, TLO.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead and call to order this meeting and the determination of quorum. Mr. Stephanie, do we have a quorum?
We have quorum.
Okay, and any public comment?
None.
Okay. Item number 6, presentation of proposed 2025-2026 reappraisal plan. And at this point, we're going to go ahead and recess our meeting and then go into a public hearing. Is that correct, Elias? I'm sorry? You'll do the presentation, okay. Who will be doing that?
We are.
Okay.
One of you is Letty, our Assistant Chief Appraiser. Sorry, Letty.
It's okay.
And what we're going to present to you all this morning is basically the plan for these next coming 3 years as far as reappraisals are concerned for the areas of Nueces County. And then each department head and coordinator, or just department head and coordinator, will give you a presentation as well as to what each department is in charge of doing while we're doing the reappraisal process throughout the years. And this, go ahead.
Okay. So, good morning. My name is Leticia Roberts. I have been with the appraisal district for 16 years. I first started as a seasonal clerk and worked my way up to becoming an appraiser, and then a coordinator, then a manager, and now the assistant chief appraiser. We are here to present the Nueces County reappraisal plan, which is required to be prepared every 2 years under the Texas Property Tax Code. You will hear from each department manager and coordinator regarding the reappraisal process. Okay, the department you will be hearing from is taxpayer services, business personal property, commercial, residential, and market analysis, and you will also hear from T.Y. Pickett, our contract appraisers who appraise industrial and minerals. We are happy to answer any questions, but please reserve your questions till the end of the managers and coordinators presentation. And at that time, they'll take the questions. So I will turn it over now to Christy Hill and Yasmin Sanchez with the taxpayer services.
Thank you.
Good morning. Sorry I'm late.
Good morning. Hi, I'm Christy Hill, manager over taxpayer services. Here with me is Yasmin Sanchez. She's supervisor of our department. A little bit about myself. I started working for the district in 2016 as coordinator in the taxpayer services department. I became the manager in 2019. Prior to my employment here with the district, I served as the deputy chief appraiser for Hockley County for 13 years prior to coming to the district. Our department, Taxpayer Services, along with myself, Yasmin and myself, we have 10 highly skilled, experienced, remarkable clerks. 5 whom work the exemptions applications and 5 who are responsible for our property records. Oftentimes, our office is the first point of contact with the customers entering the building or calling in for information. We strive to serve the community with professionalism, integrity, and in all aspects of our communication with the customer. Our staff is experienced, they're courteous, willing, and always available to assist customers with any questions or concerns. The exemption staff administer and determine eligibility for the various types of property tax exemptions that are authorized by the Texas Property Tax Code. This would be our Bible. This is our guide. Most common exemptions granted include general homestead exemption, disabled person exemption, person age 65 or older exemption, disabled veteran exemption, and solar and/or wind power exemption. The record staff process all the legal documents pertaining to property ownership for property tax purposes. They work closely with the Nueces County Clerk's Office. They work with local attorneys, title companies to obtain accurate property information. These ladies are also responsible for maintaining and updating all our mailing addresses. Common documents processed in this area include your general warranty deeds, your probated wills, affidavit of heirships, divorce decrees, foreclosures, and tax sale deeds. During our extremely busy appraisal review board time season, many of our clerks often serve upstairs help with the demanding hearing process. Since joining the department, Yasmin has quickly become knowledgeable of the duties and responsibilities. She's a true asset, always making sure our taxpayers are treated with utmost respect. I greatly appreciate all that she does. She's definitely, like I said, a true asset, and I'll open it up to her for add any further information.
Thank you, Christy. Good morning. My name is Yasmin Sanchez. I'm the department supervisor and coordinator for Taxpayer Services. I began as a residential appraiser here in December of 2021, and now I am happy to serve the Taxpayer Services Department. I handle the specialty exemptions for the county, such as the CHOTO, the solars, charitable, religious, abatement, so anything that's beyond the scope of our day-to-day inflow of traffic for taxpayers. But we're very public service oriented, and we understand that we're the first to greet taxpayers as they come in and help them direct them to wherever they need to go in the building so that they can get whatever they need taken care of. So thank you for allowing us to serve you, and we're here on the first floor if you ever need anything.
Thank you for your presentation. Can I ask if the board has any questions of anyone?
I just have a comment.
I'm sorry?
I just have a comment.
Go ahead.
We work with you guys really inside and out, and I'm really proud of how far you come along, Yasmin, because you used to work for us. Yeah. So I'm glad to see you get your promotion and things are going well. But they're the first point of contact for our office, and I would say probably 90% of our calls, they come down to the appraisal. They come in, we need our exemption. We didn't get our exemption. Oh, okay. Let me put you in contact with them. So we just put them directly in contact, and these guys are great in following up and taking care of everything. So I appreciate the job you guys do.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else have a comment? Thank you. Next.
Hello, my name is Jessica Moya. I am the business personal property manager. I started working here at Nueces County Appraisal District in 2001. I began as an office clerk in the exemptions and records department, and I was promoted to an appraiser and market analyst in 2004. My family relocated to Houston in 2007, where I went to work for the Harris County Appraisal District. When we moved back in 2010, I went and I commuted back and forth to Jim Wells County Appraisal District, and in 2012, I returned to Nueces CAD.
Hello, I'm Brian Fields. I've been working in the appraisal districts for over 11 years. From 2013 to 2017, I worked at the Duval County Appraisal District as an appraiser, eventually as chief appraiser. In 2017, I came to the Nueces County Appraisal District as a business personal property appraiser, and about 2 months ago, I became the coordinator of the department. Our department consists of 17 employees, 1 manager, 1 coordinator, 9 personal property appraisers, 1 lead clerk, and 5 clerks.
And so the duties and responsibilities of our department can be broken down into 7 sections. First, we have discovery and identification of all taxable personal property in the county. The first being field inspections. We do work the entire county each year. As you can imagine, there's new businesses that go up and some businesses close down. Businesses will also move locations. So now, because personal property is movable and not always visible, we will try and discover and identify personal property using a lot of other sources, like the Texas Comptroller's website, Nueces County Clerk's Office, Texas Department of Motor Vehicles, Texas Park and Wildlife, U.S. Coast Guard, FAA aircraft registration, Texas Department of Housing and Community Affairs, Nueces County Health Department. We send out tenant letters, we use social media, and ...
The appraisers start the reappraisal in August of every year. They spend about 6 months out in the field trying to discover all tangible personal property. This can include things such as furniture and fixtures, machinery and equipment, computers, supplies, inventory, signage, industrial equipment, vehicles, aircrafts, watercrafts, anything that qualifies as taxable, tangible, personal property. And
So once we identify these specific categories, we must then recognize and account for all legal considerations, which may impact appraisals and process exemption applications. So when reviewing an account, we will research if it is charitable, religious, or a government organization. Or other examples are implements of husbandry, which is farm use, pollution control, which means it has received a % exemption from the TCEQ. There's also goods in transit or Freeport, which are goods transferred out of the state before 175 days.
okay, and after discovering the personal property, the appraiser will determine the size, physical location, the physical address, the status of the property. Movable personal property, they have to determine the assumed location of where it's housed at, to ensure that the value is placed into the proper taxing jurisdictions.
Next, we will place a valuation. We must use applicable approaches to value and recognize and account for depreciation. So the primary approach to valuing personal property is the cost approach. This is the most common and generally applicable approach for the valuation of personal property. Cost used in the cost approach can be historical, replacement, or reproduction cost. So although often the historical costs are usually available, we'll take that historical cost times the depreciation rate to arrive at market value. The assets will be broken down into categories and will estimate a percentage of remaining value of an asset. So typically, a computer will have a 3-year life versus furniture and fixtures that will have a 10-year life. Our depreciation schedule is arrived by using a combination of the Texas Comptroller's depreciation schedule and the Marshall and Swift Cost Guide depreciation schedule.
Okay. In January of each year, the appraisal district mails out a personal property rendition to every business. They are required, according to tax code section 2201, each business must file a business personal property rendition before April 15th, no later than May 15th if they request an extension. On the rendition, they will put a list of assets, historical cost, a good faith estimate of current value, and the acquisition year so that we can work with that. We can take that information, compare it to the previous appraisal year, look at the field notes of what we saw when we were out there, and then any changes will be confirmed. Any value changes that are of size will be confirmed. The ownership will also be confirmed every year.
And our last phase of the year will be the defensive values during the review phase. So the personal property department will defend its valuation methods and conclusions at all appraisal review board hearings using all available data, information, and evidence. This is also true for any arbitrations, SOAs, and lawsuits. And that's all we have for you. Thank you so much. Does anyone have any questions?
Thank you for your
Okay, thank
presentation.
you.
Have a good day.
Thanks.
Good morning. First of all, my name is Willie Carrington, and I apologize, I don't have a tag team partner today. My coordinator's out sick today, so I'll be on my own today. Again, my name is Willie Carrington. I'm an RPA, CTA. I've been with the district for over 29 years. I've been in the commercial department and land department for over 29 years. I was a coordinator for 6 years, and for the last 8 years, I've been the manager for the commercial land department. So, been here for a while. I'm one of the older statesmen. But anyway, just want to let you know what we're looking at for our 2025 reappraisal plan that we're working on currently. My department has 15 staff, including myself, manager. I have 1 coordinator, Michael Kirkham. I have 6 commercial appraisers. I have 4 land appraisers, and I have 3 clerks. We have over 23,000 accounts overall that we look at every 3 years. We divide them up into sections, and that's part of our reappraisal plan. We do it by school districts. Nueces County has 13 school districts. We divide it and have 4 school districts for each, and CCISD being the largest school district, we divide CCISD into 3 so we can have 5 school districts every year that we're reappraising. It's just a different area of CCISD that we're looking at. So this year, we're looking at 5 school districts. Our districts are CCISD, looking at the south side. We're looking at Driscoll ISD, London ISD, Calallen ISD, and Flower Bluff ISD. So part of what we're going to be doing before we even head out to the field is going to be looking at sales ratio reports, at sales. It's very important that we look at that. Obviously now the comptroller has the property value study, which is part of how they are, I guess you can say that how they're grading the districts on if we're meeting valuation or not. And so we want to make sure that we look at ourselves and make sure that besides the 5 school districts that we're looking at, we're doing all the school districts just to make sure there's not some activity or something that we have to look at. So it's a possibility that we may have to, even though it's not part of our reappraisal plan, we may have to look at an area that has some activity for sales, again, because of the property value study. So we have to be very aware of that in the commercial department. Obviously, the standards is we need to be within 95% to 105%. That's how they're graded, and basically. And so if we're holding value, then the schools, hopefully their school funding doesn't get affected. So that's very important for us that we're looking at. Besides getting ready and going out to the field, our appraisers are working on getting their cards ready, making sure that everything on the card is correct. We'll go out and do our physical inspections. We'll make sure that everything has a cost schedule. The first part is everything on a commercial property on our appraisal card is under cost. Later, we'll look at it as an income producing property if it fits that category. The comptroller now wants us, because of the property value study, to change or to look at all properties as income producing. And that's not Nueces County, that's statewide. They're recommending that we look at that. It looks like their appraisers found that it's easier for them to do the income than any other process. So it doesn't actually fit all the categories, but for the most of the categories, it can work and it does work. So we try to work after we put it on cost, then we'll put it on income when we're looking at these properties and these categories individually. So besides our commercial appraisers out in the field, we also have ag appraisers, land appraisers that are out in the field and go out and they visit properties that have an agricultural, I wouldn't call it, people call it an exemption, but it's actually an adjustment. It's an adjustment to the value of the property. So it's not a true exemption as a homestead or an over 65 or something like that. An ag exemption or an ag adjustment, it lowers the value of the market value. So what our appraisers have to go do is make sure, especially in the city, they need to go out there and make sure, especially in areas that are being developed, that there's no change in use. That way, we'll have to take into that effect and either roll it back if there's a change or continue it on. So we have appraisers doing all kinds of things on the field, both commercial and land. So part of going out there and doing the 5 school districts, we're also working permits. These are permits from last year that we're closing up, finishing up, and we're working new permits this year. So it's quite a few things that they're doing all at one time. We're also making sure that our exempt role, we have an exempt role, so any properties that are owned by the school, the entities, the city, the state, have a cost schedule put on them. So we want to make sure, I think one day, I'm sure the legislature is going to come out with wanting an exempt role to do something, right, Kevin? Probably. So, but anyway, we'll have that to make sure that we have that accordingly. So those are what we're looking at. We're looking at it probably within 8,000 to 10,000 accounts for this year overall. Besides the reappraisal school districts we're looking at, we're also looking at categories. There's categories that we look at as income. There's 6 particular categories we're looking at this year. 2 of them are every year because of just the way they change, the flux in them. Those are apartments and hotels. And the reason why we look at them every year is because there's always something that could go wrong, weather, something, disaster, so it's all based on income, and so we're always looking at those every year. But we've added 4 categories to that list, and this year we're looking at urgent care and surgical hospitals, assisted living and skilled nursing, and industrial flex. So industrial flex are industrial complexes that are throughout the area, way out Weber, No Tarb, that area, things like that. There's some other areas off of Old Brownsville Road and off of McBride and some other areas of that we're looking at. So we'll be looking at those areas also. So part of these categories that we're looking at, we're also going to be doing some in-house work. We're currently on 2 appraisers short, so hopefully we'll be hiring pretty soon, and I'll be training some new appraisers. We'll also be updating our schedules on our income schedules. We'll be reviewing our property codes. That's the most important thing, is to make sure that what's on our card is what we're looking at out there. If it's a hotel, it's a hotel. If it's an apartment, it's an apartment. If it's a storage unit, it's a storage unit. So we want to make sure all those things matter and they all match up. So we'll be looking at those. We're looking at updating the classification schedules and the income schedules. And then the last thing we're going to be looking at is probably reviewing the cost schedules that we use with Marshall Swift, and we'll be taking a look at those and updating those. So we have if you can see, we have a lot on our plate, and we'll be busy this year. So, do we have any questions?
I have a comment.
Yes,
I wanted to do a shout out to Willie. I've known him for almost the 26 years that he has been here. And obviously his expertise, everything speaks for himself. But what I admire the most, Willie, is your demeanor has not changed. And that's an accomplishment. You've always been fun to work with, even when we disagreed. And I do not know how you do that, being here that long, so I admire that. And I just thank you for all the years you put in. So
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I have a general question, it probably applies to everybody, though, and it's just a point of curiosity, is how do you guys find the sales data in a
That's a good question. That's
sales
very
data
tough, since we're a non-disclosure state, and commercial sales, it's hard. It's really hard. We do have outside vendors. We have CoStar, but we don't. They don't have a lot of sales, a lot of update sales. That's why we're behind the 8 ball with the comptroller's office. They have access to everything. They have access to MLS, they have access to all the funds, they can buy all the vendors they need, and that's the opposite with us. We don't get MLS, we can't afford to buy all these other things, and then the majority of the vendors are out there mostly tend toward residential sales.
Right.
So commercial sales, it's very hard. We ask, when the sale happens, we ask the owner if they give us a settlement statement. We try to do the best we can, but that's probably the toughest thing we have.
Yeah, it was kind of
collecting
rhetorical
sales.
because I don't know how you guys do it. It baffles me that the state has a system set on property tax and sales data, but yet it's closed and we're not going to tell you what it is. So how the hell do you, I don't know of any fee appraiser that's going to get an accurate appraisal without having a baseline of a sales price. Sales isn't the appraisal, and we get that because that's the reason why there's a very complex process involved in coming up to an appraisal. But it is the foundation for the basis of having a selling appraisal.
Sure. And they continue on throughout the year. They don't stop till August or September. We have to stop in March because, we have a appraisal roll to get out, and we have to get the ARB process going, and we have to get that out. So we have to stop. They don't. They continue on.
Well, we have a statutory, and I'm just kind of saying this for some of our newer members, but we have a statutory cited date of January 1, and that's the condition the property is on January 1. But yet the controller is still taking data going beyond January 1. So that's where you see some of these issues possibly with the PBS study.
Willie, excuse me, the only thing I'm gonna say, I've known you for a long, long time, and not here at the appraisal district, but I want to just commend you and thank you because 29 years of service, that's a long, long time.
Appreciate that.
It's hard to find people to stay in one job that long, so I just appreciate your dedication.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Anything else?
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you, Willie.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name's Deborah Morin. I am the residential department manager. I have here with me Jared Garcia, our department coordinator, and Chris Burnett, our market department manager. I'd like to start a little, I'll share a little about myself, then Jared will take his turn in sharing about himself, and then Chris, and then we'll get into the meat and potatoes of the residential department responsibilities. So I first began my career here at Nueces County Appraisal District in 1985. As an entry-level clerk, I worked in the exemptions department, the business personal property department, the records department, mapping, and GIS. Eventually, I worked my way up to becoming a registered professional appraiser, and then residential director. I have completed 29 years here, but in between that time, I worked 2 years as a property tax consultant. Then I served as chief appraiser and tax collector for 8 years in George West, Texas, at Live Oak County Appraisal District. I also had my license as a Texas licensed realtor for 19 years. My career path has predominantly been the property tax profession. I absolutely love what I do, and I thank God for it.
Good morning, board members. My name is Jared Garcia. I'm a RPA, Registered Professional Appraiser, and the Residential Department Coordinator. I've been employed with the district since 2018 and been the department coordinator since 2021.
Hi there. My name is Chris Burnett. I am the Market Analysis Manager. I've been at the district for 14 years now, and in my time here, I've appraised pretty much every type of residential property that we work on here. My background includes working in the design and construction field. I've designed houses and multifamily properties from the coast all the way up into the hill country up near Houston. I've dealt with many different types of construction, and materials used. As for the market analysis department, that includes myself, 3 residential appraisers, 1 land appraiser who also works with residential properties. And I also look after the 7 residential clerks that do the data entry and for the calculations for the rest of the residential area.
I appreciate the opportunity to be here today and go over broadly the scope of work. In our 2025-2026 reappraisal plan, as outlined for the residentials department portion of responsibility. In our department, we have myself, the residential department manager, we have 1 coordinator, and we have 15 full-time appraisers. In total, we're 17 appraisers in the residential department. Out of 217,110 parcels in Nueces County as of certification on July the 25th, my department is responsible for an estimated 137,000 parcels. Our department appraises single-family homes, condos, and townhomes, small multifamily dwellings such as duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes, as well as manufactured homes, which are often referred to as mobile homes. Our reappraisal process begins after the previous year's tax roll is certified on July the 25th. We begin by identifying properties to be inspected and reappraised by our residential department timeline, which is found as Exhibit D1 in the reappraisal plan. For reappraisal, we inspect 1/3 of the county annually for all property groups except the mobile homes, which are inspected in whole every year because of their portability. During this process, appraisers are trained to identify any changes to the property, typically on exterior of the property, such as structures added, demolished, removed, or the appearance of any damage visible on the exterior of the property. All collective information is documented, utilized when setting market values.
Okay, another vital part of our reappraisal process is to inspect properties that have obtained city permits. Our appraisers inspect the property to verify that the work outlined in the city permit has been completed. Once it has been completed, that information is then documented and entered into the property account. Our department follows the reappraisal plan to keep up with the ongoing growth of residential properties in the county. The majority of the growth that we're seeing right now is the south side of Corpus Christi, Port Aransas ISD, London ISD, and also Flower Bluff ISD. After the reappraisal fieldwork is completed, the appraisers then start analyzing the sales activity throughout the county. We then utilize that data to set market values. Then after that process is completed, we then enter the equalization phase. That phase begins right after appraisal notices are mailed out. That equalization phase is also known as protest season. During protest season, our department helps taxpayers throughout the protest process and also defend values at ARB hearings, arbitration hearings, and lawsuits as well.
The market team is responsible for periodically updating the cost tables, which will be done in the upcoming months for all residential and manufactured homes. Throughout the year, one of the primary job functions for our department is to gather the sales information, which you were asking about. We do so by looking at any sources we can. We have property owners that come in during protest season, realtors bring in information, tax agents, and of course anything else we can find. We send out sales letters and hopefully receive those back. Then the market team confirms the sales prices, we verify amenities on the properties, and when necessary, we will adjust effective ages based on listing photos and sales flyers to make sure we have an accurate record of those properties. We also define neighborhoods. We get out and research the neighborhood boundaries based on geographic location, type and age of properties, and any other factors that come up. The analysis of neighborhoods, we do that to ensure that property values are uniform and equal. Our field inspections we do on new and existing subdivisions to try to grasp the trends of the overall market in the county. We use a combination of the cost and sales approach to value. We review sales ratio reports to see how our values compare throughout the county. The state requires us to be within 5% plus or minus of what the sales are showing us. Because sales prices continually change due to different factors such as mortgage rates, inventory of houses, and buyer preferences, we look at these each year, as well as our neighborhood profiles. They change each year, and as per the Texas Property Tax Code, we have to follow that. Then it comes into the protest season where we help out with walk-in property owners, we help with the ARB hearings, tickets, and anything else that comes up. Then we get into the arbitration season where we will help gather the information needed for those arbitrations. Do we have any questions?
I'd like to add that as a team, you know, we work very closely, residential and market. We try to, because he's got some registered professional appraisers in his department, we kind of come together at that equalization phase to help each other with the load. Because, you know, we have so many people that, whether they understand or don't understand the process, they file their protest, and the three of us during equalization phase, we're running around trying to do the best we can with the taxpayers, treating them respectfully, trying to put out fires. You know, when they come in, they don't understand. We try to help make sure they understand. Of course, you know, we get a lot of requests for data. We try to meet the deadlines that we have. And I'd like to say that Jared, up and coming coordinator, I see him advancing someday to sit in Mr. Canales' chair. But I also know that Chris is very, very helpful. And I hope that they can say the same about me, because it really takes a village to get this process done annually. And then, of course, every 3 years, covering the reappraisal plan and the number of accounts that we have to process. Thank you to Ms. Roberts, and thank you to Mr. Canales for giving us the opportunity to share with you all what we get to do. Thank you.
Any questions?
Same comment as before, because I've known Deborah almost as long as Willie. That doesn't speak for her. Her and her team have a huge workload, you know, it's like really huge. And sometimes we started screaming at each other, I think, at one point 25 years ago. And now it's like, I understand where they're coming from, not all, you know, and the expertise is fabulous of all of you guys, so thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I do have a general question about on the appraisal of the properties, because I see all these properties as people come into my office, and I know that we reappraise every 3 years, but I also know that the properties tend to change value each year. Can you kind of talk a little bit about what micro adjustments you are doing in the interim?
Yes.
Between the full reappraisal and what happens on an annual basis?
So a lot of different factors can come into the changing of an appraisal value year over year. We not only have the reappraisal that takes place every third year. We have Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, so it's a cycle of every 3 years. In addition to that portion of reappraisal, looking at those properties every third year, we also have over 5,000 permits that are issued by the city of Corpus that we look at during every year. Whatever's given to us, we go and lay eyes on it that year. So a permit being taken out of for the property can also change the property. Also, during the equalization phase, when we have people corresponding with us about different things, We make note of those, and when we start our permit season, we go out and look at those properties also. So permit season, new construction, when there's new construction in the city of Port Aransas, city of Robstown, city of Corpus, we're given those permits, we get out there and take a look at those as well. So permit season, reappraisal season, word of mouth, people communicating with us, letting us know there's something out there that perhaps we haven't picked up, maybe was missed, maybe we didn't get that one permit from the city. Believe me, neighbors call on neighbors sometimes.
We get those calls.
Yes.
I send them to you guys.
We do our best. We do our best to try to cover everything.
Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
And also along those same lines, sales occur every year.
Right.
There are numerous times that we'll find a property was purchased in January, it was sold again in September. Whether it was flipped, whether it was just somebody moved in, didn't like it, left, those kind of things happen every year. Every year we do have a different number of sales that come in. For example, last year we had roughly 4,800 sales. The year before that, we had roughly 7,200 sales. So we have to look at those sales every year according to the tax code.
And primarily because of the PBS.
Yes, yeah.
And so that portion is where we adjust every year. We may not physically see every property every year, but we do have to look at the sales.
Very good. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Other questions? Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
Do we have someone else?
Do you want to take that one?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Doug Osterloh, and with me is Ricardo. Go ahead.
Ricardo Guzman. Good morning, everybody.
And we represent Thomas Y. Pickett and Company, and we appraise special properties for the appraisal district. We established our business in 1926, and since that time we have been working exclusively for taxing jurisdictions. We've had an office here in Corpus Christi since 1953, which we opened to better serve our clients in South Texas and have maybe a little better hands-on than traveling across the state just to make a meeting like this. So we work basically for many appraisal districts in the state of Texas, and we also work for counties in other states, Wyoming, North Dakota, Mississippi, and do fee appraisals for appraisal districts all across the nation. Right now, matter of fact, we're doing some properties in Maine. And we have to reappraise every year. If you will look at your, I think the bottom of page 41 and the top of page 42, you will see the type properties we reappraise, or we appraise every year. And the nature of these properties require a yearly reappraisal. I'll give you a quick rundown. I'm not sure if you want me to get in all the detail of how each appraisal is done, so I'll try and just do a general category. Of course, you see the first property is the F2 real and industrial property, and this is basically more complex industrial properties, which we appraise all across the country, but this can be anywhere from refineries and petrochemical plants to wind farms or a new lithium refinery here in the county. The other properties below that, what we call the J category properties, are public utilities. And that's everything, like you say, from the gas, electric, telephone, railroad, pipelines. Most of these properties are regulated, and we use an accepted method of appraising these that was accepted within the state of Texas. It's used by the state appraisal firms and the taxpayer, this method of appraisal. And when I say these properties are regulated, the interstate properties, these cross county lines and sometimes cross state lines. And if they cross state lines, they report to the federal government. We use those reports every year once they are filed with the federal government to perform our appraisals. And if these are within the state, interstate utilities, we get from the state of Texas, from the Railroad Commission or the PUCT. We use those reports to perform our appraisals each year. So we have no option other than to reappraise each year. When you get down to the L2 property, I'm sure the rest of the appraisal district appraises quite a few more properties. Our personal property, industrial personal property are normally associated with the other properties that we appraise, such as furniture and fixtures at a refinery or a telephone company or vehicles working for a telephone company mainly or electric companies. And with that property, with all these properties, we also look at the Freeport and pollution controls, but those are really not as much of the appraisals as they are the state exemptions that are given. And we follow them, keep up with them, and the Nueces County legal staff especially keeps up with whether these properties are considered exempt or not. So I'm going to be brief, as I said, and I will take questions, and Ricardo is going to talk about his specialty of appraisal of minerals.
Good afternoon, or good morning. My name is Ricardo Guzman. I've been a registered professional appraiser now for some 12 years, and I'm a retired professional engineer. We appraise the producing mineral properties in Nueces County. We use the income approach to establish the net market value as of January 1st for every lease in the county. We begin early in the year with data entry. So one of the things we must do is identify all the leases, all the producing leases in the county to establish an account. We also coordinate with the operators of these leases to acquire a division order, which tells us who the owners are and what their mailing addresses are so that we can send out notices, as well as the tax office can send out the billing. We also acquire a operating statement from each operator for every lease so that we can discover what their cost is to get their products to market. So once we've got this information, we begin to dwell down into the appraisal. There's three main parameters that are required to do an appraisal, and one is we need to know how much oil and gas is remaining in the ground. We need to know how fast it will be produced over the life of the well, as well as establish what it will sell for over that time. So once we get the quantity, which is based on what the actual production curve is for the wells, we're able to calculate or estimate what the remaining reserves are in the ground. Pricing is established based on the last 12 months average price of what they actually sold their product for in the previous year. That average price is multiplied by a price adjustment factor that is established by the Energy Information Administration of the federal government. They use an index, commodity index, to establish an estimate of what they estimate prices will be for the current budget year or the current tax year, as well as into the future. What will it increase in value or decrease as far as pricing is concerned? Once we have the total of the commodity, multiply that times the price, we get a gross market value. Again, we go back to the operating statement for each lease and subtract from the gross value the cost to get the commodity to market. And that gives us our net value, which we will go ahead and distribute that value across all the owners based on the division order that we received from the operator. In conclusion, we appraised approximately 750 leases for about 24,000 owners documented across 37 taxing entities in Nueces County. Mineral values this year, approximately 60% of the value was comprised of natural gas, 40% was oil this year. Last year was the direct opposite. 60% of the value was natural gas with 40% being oil, and the reason being the price. The change in pricing affects the value tremendously, so that requires us to appraise these annually. We are checked every year by the Property Tax Assistance Division. They submit a property value study which checks our values, and again, like everybody else, we need to be within the range of plus or minus 5% of what they think it should be. We send out notices in April, and we defend the appraisals at ARBs in June and July, and then we'll have the property value studies at the end of the year. Any questions?
I have a question going back to what you were talking about, Doug. On the state exempt properties, can you kind of get in the weeds a little bit more on what those state exempt properties are and how those are appraised as far as, are you appraising at the exempt value, or are you appraising at the market value and then reducing the exemptions, or?
We're appraising at the market value and reducing. Normally, you hope you get from the TCEQ and the applications, you get the cost of the property, which is exempt, and it's a ratio of the market value to cost. And you apply that same ratio to the exempt property. And other exempt properties, I guess now we have some exempt properties which are owned by public entities, and will not be, we'll talk about electric generating plants and everything. So I don't even think that will be a state entity. That's just now like a Corpus Christi gas company or something like that is not a taxable item, or it will not be taxable.
But you'd still appraise it and put a value on it. It just wouldn't create any, it just wouldn't generate any income.
I'm not sure if we will do that soon, but it's, we do not appraise the gas supply, Corpus Christi Gas or Water Department's assets. So we will have to look at whether we would be appraising say a public utility, electric generating utility, whether that would be something we would maintain, or since it is owned by this city, San Antonio, right? It's a department of the city of San Antonio, I'm not sure.
Is that the wind farm?
Pardon?
Is that the wind farm?
No, that's a couple of the electric generating, the Nueces Bay.
Oh, yeah, the Nueces, yeah.
Right.
There was one interesting thing you said. You said the change of pricing of oil and gas affects the value tremendously, right?
Yes, it does.
So when we look at some of and goes back to the problems we had with evaluations overall in industries. If we look back, they stayed the same for 10 years, more or less, light variations. And some of the other industry companies have stayed the same forever, right, since 2009 or so. But when I look at that statement, wouldn't it be, and maybe because they give you the same growth statement again every year, I don't know, because they can give you whatever they have, right? So if you would just base this on this, instead of having to go back to them working off their numbers, or do you take that in account independently? I guess that's my question.
The pricing?
Yes.
Well, the pricing is independent of, well, I guess it's not independent. It's very dependent on what the market demand is. Okay, so based on their actual sales, what they reported to the comptroller's office, the pricing is recorded as to what they sold it for, and it's their sales price as well as the purchase price. Two entities will report the sales price, basically.
I'm trying to get to something else because, and I'm just trying to understand, right? Because you say, okay, the change of pricing affects the value tremendously. So that's what you know, right, as an appraiser. But then I look at some of the companies that have stayed the same for 10 years.
And we're not talking minerals, we're talking industrial.
Industrial, right.
Okay.
And so we know that there was lots of changes in pricing, right? So I'm like, if they give you always the same numbers, because otherwise you wouldn't come up with always the same appraisal, right? Then where is the change of pricing figured into the industrial appraisal?
Change of pricing of industrials, and again, we have many appraisers who specialize in different types of appraisals. So I'm just basically a general, what would you call that, jackleg. Just know a little bit about everything to be dangerous, and you don't want to know how many years I've been in the business. So the detailed
answer would be in the appraisal itself.
Well, let's take, say, a petrochemical or a refining property. You have to look at each year what their feedstock is, what the price of oil and gas is. That's their feedstock. Refineries using crude oil, petrochemicals using gas, natural gas, and they are developing and refining or producing a different product. So not only do you have to look at the cost of their feedstock, you also have to look at the many times global and national and state prices of the product they produce, such as gasoline or butane or any crude oil, which is shipped out of the country. These are all affected. You have to look at what it costs them to produce a property and what the market is paying for their property.
I do understand that. I just
Okay.
don't understand how you end up having a 10-year span of the same value when the key element of changes is your pricing that affects the value, right? And the
Well,
pricing
that's-
changes every year, but the
Everything-
value stays the same.
and
That's
everything-
what I don't understand.
Okay, and everything depreciates every year. Well,
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with our properties that we appraise that stay the same for 10 years.
Well, there's a lot of them that are very, very close to staying the same for more than 10 years.
Okay.
And I'm sure, that's public knowledge, I'm sure we can look at them, but it's just a question. I just
Right.
want to understand the system,
Right.
because I think you're more dependent on what they give you, right? So then just, my question is, if you can actually gauge this on the pricing of oil and gas, you would have an independent vehicle to say, okay, we are questioning those numbers this year because the pricing is so different than last year, and we're coming up with the same thing,
Which we
so-
do in mineral property.
Okay,
But
not in oil and gas. Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Okay,
Well,
thank you.
there are reports of
Yeah.
what people do produce.
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes you have to rely on the owner
And that's what I
to
mean,
know
that's-
what is
yeah.
produced, but that is not the
Yeah,
main component. You're also
Yeah.
looking at what they're paying, what their
Yeah.
market is, and all that. If properties, I guess we would have some industrial properties that are extremely old and have reached their limit of use, and unless they grow or change, they are at the floor of depreciation.
so you take the depreciation into account too.
And so those may not change if it's a smaller property, but it's something that is producing. I mean, I could think of maybe older compressor stations might stay the same value for a series of years and everything, but, I'm not
Okay,
as familiar with the properties we appraise. I cannot think of many that I appraise
Okay.
that stay the same for 10 years.
okay,
I'm not aware of that.
thank you.
Mhm.
Any other comments, questions? Thank you all very much.
thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Okay, so basically all I want to say is that thank you all for your presentation. It was very educational and very well prepared. The job that you all do, it's amazing having to deal with people and with numbers. It's, beyond my comprehension. Ronnie, thank you for having such a great organization of team members and workers and dedicated people to make this process work so well. So just thank you and all your staff. Anybody else any comments? Okay. Now, do we need a motion to close this meeting or?
No, so then the next would just be announcing that you're recessing the meeting and then going into the public hearing and then just kind of follow.
Okay. So
That's fair.
we're going to go ahead and recess the appraisal plan meeting, is that correct?
Well, it's the open meeting, our entire meeting.
And
is
then
being
we're going to go back into our general meeting, is that correct?
We're recessing the meeting and then we're going into a public hearing.
Okay, we're going to recess our meeting, then we'll go back into a public hearing,
And
okay?
then we call to see if there's any
Comment.
comments.
Okay. Do we have any comments from anyone? No comments?
Okay, so we open the public hearing. If you just want to read through what's there under number 7, just go one by one.
Okay. Open public hearing.
Okay.
The Board of Directors will conduct a public hearing on the 2025-2026 reappraisal plan. We will close the public hearing and reconvene our meeting. Okay. So item number 8, discussion and/or action consent agenda. Number 1, approval of the July 10th, 2024 regular board minute meeting. Do we have any discussion? Can we get a motion?
So on the consent agenda, it would just be approved unless somebody wants to pull one of these items. And so the other item that's on there is a litigation report. So if they don't want to pull, then they can just do a motion to approve the consent items.
Motion so made.
Okay, got a motion by Ms. Hilfold, do we have a second?
I'll second.
Second by Ms. Schulte. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Item number 9, discussion and/or action related to the 2025-26 reappraisal plan. Is that going to be Elias or?
Well, it's the appraisal people.
Okay.
I'm everything else. But this item was put on with the intent that if you're happy with the reappraisal plan and any comments that came out of the public hearing, then you can motion to adopt the reappraisal plan.
Can we have a motion to adopt the appraisal plan?
I have a question.
Sorry, Greg.
Does the appraisal plan have to be approved as one whole unit, or can, okay.
Any other discussion? Can we have a motion to approve the 2025-2026 reappraisal plan?
Where's the quorum?
Right.
Did
Yeah, we
Caitlin?
lost quorum, so we
Yeah, we
gotta
lost
wait.
quorum because she left, but I have a question.
Well,
On the,
let's,
okay.
yeah, we need to stop the entire meeting.
Okay.
There
Okay.
technically is not a meeting right now, so until Gabby, I'm sorry, until Caitlin gets back.
I can leave too.
Take turns.
Does anybody know if Caitlin left or she just?
No, she just took
Okay.
it out.
Just went down the hall?
Yep. She shouldn't be right back. I No, still gotta wait on. Go, Caitlin. We'll be right back.
Okay, I think we're back in session. Okay, and I think we left off in getting a motion for the 2025-2026 reappraisal plan. Have a motion?
On the reappraisal plan, the what are we motioning on in substance in terms of?
Can approve it, am I correct, Melissa?
Right, it's
Yes.
the entire plan.
It's the entire plan, and the 3 years, is this a legislative, still a legislative requirement, right?
Yes.
And then, so the changes, did we anywhere have to highlight the changes to the old one, or it's just the whole plan?
It's just a whole new plan.
It's just updated.
Right.
It
I know.
goes from year to year. So now you're gonna have 25, 26, 27, where last year was 23, 24, 25. So
Okay.
it just updates the areas that we're going to be looking at.
Just what the plan is to get the reappraisals now.
Okay, okay.
But it also re-engages T.Y. Pickett, is that right?
T.Y. Pickett's always been.
Right, I understand. But you know, I kind of got a reminder as we're about to look at the audit, and it just kind of reminds me of how, like, when services are provided like that, usually maybe a board can just discuss how it's always used one provider and how that thought process goes through. And that's why I asked whether the appraisal plan has to be approved as a whole unit, because I think that, 3-year plan, that is what it is. But then to combine locking in, I guess it's kind of locking in T.Y. Pickett again. So that's why, personally, I would feel more comfortable if we could discuss just how that works with looking at, I understand there's other companies that are qualified, but again, I just haven't been here long enough to understand that process.
Okay, so if you go to page 2, there is a statement in there that gives us that we can modify the plan, including any contract appraisal terms as required by the property tax.
So it doesn't lock them in?
No.
Okay.
Because that's just right now.
Who we're using,
contract
yeah,
we're using.
currently, yeah.
And so there is, you can modify it in case something.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's just a plan, nothing.
Yeah, it's the plan.
Okay, well, that was my question, if
Yeah,
they
it's a
locked them
good
in,
question.
and I thought,
Couldn't we just use ambiguous language, like the contractor, instead
Well,
of naming?
right now, there's a provision in there that says that it can be modified, the contractor, but the plan right now, since they are the contractor.
Current,
The
yeah,
current
yeah.
one, they have to have a plan according to the property tax code, that we have to have what is the plan as of right now.
So it's just a plan.
It's just a
Yeah,
plan, it's
it's
not
just
a
a plan.
contract, it's not
It's not-
binding, it's not
No,
binding
it's
us to
not- it's not
anybody.
binding.
Okay, so I think, I agree with both of you guys. Susie has, so is the contractor named in the plan, or is it just named contractor?
That's just the contract that's appraising those type of.
Okay, so there's
property.
no
As of
name,
today.
whether it's Pickett or any other names, there's no names in the proposed
No.
plan.
well, it's got all the resumes in here and all the T.Y. Pickett
Yeah, but
info.
Yeah, their name is in there
Mhm.
because they are the ones that are appraising it as of right now. And through the, once their contract comes up, then that.
And when is that up?
I don't know.
December 31st this year.
This year,
Yeah.
And
okay.
then prior to that, we'll be coming back to the board with either them or another contractor.
Okay.
But no, the answer to your question is no, you're not approving a contract with that firm. You're
Yeah,
approving their work
You're
plan,
just
Got it.
the work plan.
which won't.
And
be-
plans can change, it's a,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so,
And
it's a
there's
plan.
There's a section.
Why don't we just get a motion
I'll make a motion to approve the
specific, okay,
the
go ahead.
reappraisal plan as presented.
I second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you all very much. Okay.
Who seconded?
Item number 10, taxpayer.
Gabby.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Elias was asking.
Okay, item number 10, taxpayer liaison officers report. No way.
Jerry?
Yeah, okay, on page 2.
Good morning, everybody. As per my report, the ARB completed 2,769 protests prior to certification on July 25th. That's pretty good. They worked very hard. This month, they added 8 days to work on write-ins. Write-ins are, they're protests, but property owners or agents send in the protest, an affidavit if there's any evidence presented, and the ARB panel and an appraiser hold the hearing without the presence of the property owner or agent, either in person or by telephone. So it goes much faster because you have less conversation going on between property owners and agents and appraisers and ARB. So they do get more accomplished per day with those. Yesterday, Mr. Chiller told me they did 252 hearings in one day. That's 5 panels, so that's basically 50 per day. That's way more. That's almost double what you could do if you had in-person or telephone hearings. So while they are speedier, they are time-consuming. They also have 2 days scheduled next week where they will also have in-person hearings because there were so many that had not been scheduled that were timely hearings. Chrissy couldn't get them all in September, October, and November, so she had to schedule 2 days in August. So 2 of those days next week will also have in-person hearings. And again, then they'll have more days in September, October, and November. So according to the comptrollers, or I shouldn't say comptrollers, according to the Texas Property Tax Code, all those timely hearings are supposed to be completed by 90 days after certification, so that would be the end of October. So they're really diligently working to try to get all of those finished. Fingers crossed. I have been working with Jennifer Williams in HR to get advertising out for ARB. This year we are working with Indeed, which is free. Okay. And so we have quite a few, there have been quite a few people looking at that and applying to that, although they didn't follow directions and send it to me, but Jennifer's also working on remedying that. We've also contracted with the Island Moon. I've put things on Facebook and also KLUX. So usually those 3 or 4, we should get enough applications to cover the openings that we'll have. There will be 8 openings pending your approval of 4 additional auxiliaries. And you have 6 members who are reapplying for their position. So for new members, ARB members are appointed to a 2-year term generally, and they can serve 3 terms. But every time their term ends, they have to reapply. So we have 6 members who are coming to the end of either their first or second term, and they have to reapply. So they will go through the application process and the background check, et cetera. And then those will also be presented to you for reappointment. And I have all but one of those because that person was out of town. So it's nice that they want to come back. Yay.
No retraining.
Yeah.
Terry, I'll also be on 3 or 6 or 10 TV to advertise the
Oh, thank you.
ARB board members.
Thank you.
And what they pay per day or per meeting, whatever. We've done that in the past, and I'll continue to do that.
Good, thank you. Yes. $170 a day that's pretty darn good.
Mhm.
And most of our members, with the exception of one who I'm old enough to be his mother, he's a great board member. Most of us are retired senior citizens, but you know, it gets us off the streets. You know, keeps us busy in the summer. You know, it's a wonderful group of people. It really is. And I want to take an opportunity to thank all of our appraisers. They are so. They're so patient with me when I call and I go, so I don't know what to tell this property owner. Can you help me? And, you know, I'll transfer people to them, or they will answer a question for me so I can return a call to a property owner. But they're fabulous. They're really wonderful. So I appreciate all they do for the ARB and for me answering my questions. And I go, okay, should have known that one.
Just curious, how many hours do y'all put in a day, just average?
The ARB, their meeting starts at 8:15, and this last year they've been very lucky. They're usually done about 5 o'clock.
Right.
With generally an hour for lunch. That usually happens. Sometimes it's 15 minutes, but it just depends on what's going on upstairs. So, but it's a full day. It's a full day. So.
Any comments?
Nope.
Thank you for
Okay,
your
thank
hard
you.
efforts. Appreciate it.
I may as well just stand here because I think I'm next again anyway, right?
Right.
Okay.
11, okay. Discussion and or action to add auxiliary ARB members. No action.
So at the last meeting, Mr. Tiller asked me to ask the board to approve an additional 4 auxiliary members. It doesn't affect the budget. It's just giving them a little more flexibility and a little more, a better opportunity to be a little more efficient. So like I said earlier, these 8 days that they had to add in August it was all write-ins, which again, go a little quicker, but they had over 2,000. That being said, if they had more members, they could, when those write-ins start coming in such great numbers, they could form a 6th panel and take care of those write-ins so that they don't end up having to add an additional 2 weeks of days at the end of the year to cover those write-ins. Also, if you have 5 panels going, that's 16 people. If you only have 20 to choose from, and I know that sounds like a lot, but auxiliaries, some of them will work every day if you ask them to. Some of them, well, I really only want to work 3 days a week, and that's fine. They're not required to work 5 days a week. But you run into that where, no, I only really want to work 3 days a week, or someone is sick, or, stuff happens. So giving them more flexibility with more people to choose from and have come in and work is important.
So how many members are you asking that we add on?
4. 4 auxiliary members. We don't want to increase the size of the regular board.
And just to reiterate, it doesn't cost us anything. It helps your workload and it makes taxpayers be seen faster that way.
Yes.
Okay, so there's no budgetary impact on doing it. It's just additional names. They get paid.
They don't get paid unless they work, right?
Okay, yeah, that's all. I think that's all good.
Make a motion to.
Yeah.
Any other discussions? Can we have a motion?
I make a motion.
I made a
We
motion.
got a motion by,
You made it.
You second.
second by Kevin. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion passes.
Oh, thank you. And the ARB thanks you.
Item number 12, discussion and or action related to the 2023 financial report.
Okay, I'm going to give some leading comments and then introduce Mr. Smith here. So Section 6.063 of the Texas Property Code requires that the Board of Directors hire an auditor and have annual audits done, annual financial audits. This is separate from comptroller audits. This is strictly financial. Again, the firm of Gallon, Straley, Morales, well, it's not Gallon, Straley, Morales and Company. I keep wanting to go back to the old name. They again did, over the years, we've had different auditors from the firm do the audit, and this year, for the first time, it was Jeff Smith and Jacob Birdwell. We've had others. So they did the firm. We got an unqualified, clean opinion on the presentation of the 2023 information. And audit packet is in front of you. It looks like this. It's the one I swapped out with y'all.
Yep.
The one with the colors on it. And Jeff Smith here, the lead auditor, is going to talk you through it.
Oh, thank you, Lois. Good morning, everyone. So I am Jeff Smith, audit partner with Gallon, Morales & Smith. Name change kind of confused everybody. We just moved some letters around, so just understand that. This is my first year as the audit partner on this audit. We'd like to thank Elias and his team for all their hard work in getting this audit done. It's a lot of moving parts, and it takes a while to do it. I'll do my best to go through this somewhat briefly, but try to give you some information along the way that we think is important, just kind of point out the highlights of what you're doing. So we'll flip right over to page 2, the independent audit report. Excuse me, and to state that we have audited the financial statements of Nueces County Appraisal District for the year ended December 31, 23. And in our opinion, as stated, the financial statements present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the appraisal district. We did conduct our audit in accordance with auditing standards, except the United States of America. And just briefly, I want to go over you with some responsibilities. Responsibilities of management is responsible for the preparation and fair presentation of financial statements in accordance with accounting principles. And in preparing the financial statements, management is required to evaluate whether there are conditions or events considered in the aggregate that raise substantial doubt about the Nueces County Appraisal District's ability to continue as a going concern. Briefly, the auditor responsibilities. Our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether financial statements as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue a report. Sorry, switch page, that includes our opinion. And just briefly, in performing the audit, we exercise professional judgment, identify and assess the risk of material misstatement, obtain an understanding of internal controls, evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies, and again, conclude whether there's any issues that would raise substantial doubt about the going concern, continuous going concern. All right, so to do this, I'm going to kind of move back and forth between some pages. I've got page numbers highlighted, and I'll give you that information. And I'll go to the MD&A on page number 5. It's just kind of management's opportunity to give the highlights of how the year went, kind of like in my age, a Cliff Note version. So we'll start at the top under financial highlights. The district's assets and deferred outflows exceeded its liabilities and deferred inflows by $5.6 million. We'll flip over to page number 10 real quick. Kind of just want to give you a little more information about where that $5.6 million comes from. So if you see on table 2 the change in net position, and you look at the first column, that's the 2023 column, you'll see your revenue there for charges and services, investment income, and such, and you'll also see expenses down there for personnel services, motor vehicle expense, professional services. Just kind of want to highlight a couple items on this table just to draw your attention to them. As far as increases in revenue, you'll see that your charges for services from prior year to current year, 22 to 23, went up about $200,000. Your investment revenue went up about $150,000. Down in expenses, just to point out that your personnel services did go up considerable, but your professional services went down. All right, back to page number 5. Again, the district's net position increased $445,000 due to a combination of higher revenues for investment earnings and rendition penalties. So quickly, I want to bring you over to page 8, to another table, table number 1. Show you down in the bottom right-hand corner where that $445,000 number comes from. Just to briefly go over some of this with you. If you look in the 2023 column, and I will give you more information on these just a moment, but total assets you see are at $8.1 million, total liabilities of $1.3. Total deferred inflow of resources 2.5 gets you the net position of 5.6. And I wish we could put more tables in here to make these things flow, but it's kind of just a moving around target. So I am going to pull you to page 14 real quick. Because I wouldn't throw an $8.1 million number at you without giving you some detail. If you look at the asset column on the balance sheet, under statement of net position, the far right column, under assets, you'll see what makes up that $8.1 million. Cash is 6.4. Capital assets net of accumulated depreciation of almost 6. Going down, the total liability number was 1.35. You can see how those numbers are generated there in the column. Deferred inflow for pension purposes are in there. You also see the unavailable revenue assessments. Most of those are prepaid assessments. And then we'll go into the fund balance here in a minute. As I get to it. But let's keep moving back. Sorry, I'm going to dance you back to page 5 again. District's governmental fund reports about fund balance of $3.3 million, which is a net increase of the $552,000. And that's on page number 13. You'll see that your revenues, so this is budget versus actual. I don't want you to see the differences as they occurred. When you look at taxing unit funding, that's the same. When you look at other revenues, you see the actual was considerably higher than budget by about $230,000. When you look at the expenditures, you'll see the general government expenditures are down about 320,000, gets that excess to 552. And again, not to leave you without some explanation, we'll go over to page 36 real quick. I want to give you a little more detail of the original versus the actual. That's page 36. For revenues, how you come up with that $228,000 difference? Biggest change was in interest income, $226,000. Minor change in miscellaneous income for $2,500. And under expenditures, big changes there. You know, the decrease in personnel service expense compared to budget. Professional service were a little higher than capital outlay. So that's where those numbers kind of come from to get you the $552,000 variance. All right, so moving forward. Going to page number 7. District capital assets, net of related debt, total $1.57 million as of December 31, 23. And they do make up about 28% of the total net position. If you want to flip over to page 30 for me, I want to give you just a little more detail about those capital assets. You'll see in section C under capital assets, there's a summary there of the changes in capital assets. You see it broke down between different categories: furniture and equipment, vehicles, building and building improvements, construction process. See, the only additions for the year under capital projects was under building and building improvements of $67,000. Going down to the second section, second little group in that section C is the accumulated depreciation. You will see furniture and equipment, vehicles, building, and the depreciation additions for the year. Started the year with $1.7 million at $166,000 net between additions and depreciation, and you ended the year with $1.57 million. Okay. Any questions at this point? I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you. I'm trying to give you detail as much as I can without going too deep. The last thing I want to briefly mention to you on page number 14 is the fund balance section. If we'll go over to page number 31. There's section E. It goes over the fund balance designations. I want to kind of give you an opportunity to look at how those designations are done. But I wouldn't just throw you out there without giving you some descriptions. So for the understanding of what each of those sections of the fund balance is, if you look at page number 24, you will see in section E, it calls it unspendable, but it's really your non-spendable fund balance. You see the assigned fund balance and what it is. It represents amounts the district intends to use for specific purposes. You see the committed section in E. Committed represents amounts that can only be used for a specific purpose because of formal action done by the district's governing board. So you kind of see there the different areas that have been allocated for fund balance purposes. And most of those are controlled through the board or through meetings of that type. There's some notes in here that we're not going to go into any depth on them because they really just repeat a lot of the same information in more detail. That's a highlight at a high level of what makes up your financial statements for the year. Are there any questions?
My head's spinning, but thank you very much.
So there's no real easy way to get through the information.
On page 31, when you have the assigned, committed, and since you said this is our board actions, which I remember, you know. So for instance, the litigation contingency fund or the third floor model or stuff, it's mostly for you guys too. We voted on some of this stuff because we got the information mostly from the chief appraiser on it. But if we needed to change it, does it just take a board action on that? Or how would that work?
The next item on the agenda is where we're going to talk about those. Because it's time to firm them up.
I do have a couple of questions.
This is Ed Bennett. He's attending remote.
Okay.
Any further discussion?
Ed has a question.
I'm sorry.
I've got a couple of questions.
Yes.
That was a great deal of information, very difficult to digest. My first question is, they are our financial statements. Were there any material adjustments made?
There were no material adjustments made, no.
And internal controls, any issues with the internal control system?
No, sir. We did some walkthroughs with your people. We walked through your processes just to identify best practices. We didn't find any issues in the internal controls through our testing.
Very good. Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. President. Any additional comments or questions?
I have a question. I know some people were saying they've known people a long time, and I wanted to say I've known Jeff a long time too, and I know he knows his stuff. And he knows I'm very old, and my whole life I've never seen the budget be the actual to the dollar. That looks funny.
In what area?
How? So like,
You mean the assessments?
no, the revenue.
As far as your taxing unit revenue?
So yeah, I was looking at, like, I know it's on more than one place, but like on page 13, where it's got budget to actual, how does that, I've never seen that happen.
So for your taxing unit funding, those are I think, those are billed to the units and they just pay them. It's not like, well, we're gonna figure out what happens as it goes. I think there's a billing up front for that amount and they just pay that amount. If that
Okay.
makes sense. So
'Cause
there's
you
never a
know-
variance in that line item
Okay,
usually. I've
so there'll
seen
never
one.
will be a variance.
I've never
But
seen
normally, I mean, for an
normal
entity to have a
revenue.
budget and hit it to the dollar, that just seems
Right. On that line
like
item,
that
that's
can't be
why
right.
that's why we go to page 36, just briefly. Sorry, I'm repeating myself, but I just want to make sure it's clarified. And I wanted to show you on that one line item for the taxing units, that number is the same, budget and actual, and it will be. As far as the rest of the revenue line items, we made sure to isolate them there so you see that there are normal variances in investment income
Yeah.
and miscellaneous income, but
Yeah.
the taxing unit revenue for this purpose should be the same.
Yeah, that's a revenue, not a expenditure.
No, I know, but usually, I mean, if you get your budget, it's your guesstimate of what's gonna happen
Yeah,
for the
'cause it-
year.
'cause
And
this
so
is-
normally, I'm just looking, I didn't realize that it's kind of done differently here, but to hit it to the dollar seems, but yeah, Jeff just explained it, it's not really, I mean.
It's one of those things that doesn't really move. We have the same thing on the per parcel budget in my office. We
So it's just a different way.
calculate what it
of
is, and
accounting,
it's
I guess,
pretty
'cause
much.
Like I said, I'm
you-
really old and I've never seen.
You don't
that.
have a situation where you have these taxing jurisdictions not paying, or underpaying, or not paying the proper amount. And they get the bill and they pay
Well, but
it.
we just
It's-
talked about, like,
it's-
there's always
it's very odd.
changes with new and sold, I mean,
Yeah.
to hit it, okay.
Thank you.
That's
Anything
all.
else? Any other questions? Okay. Can we have a motion to approve the 2023 financial audit?
Second.
I'm sorry, who first?
I'll make a motion.
I thought you made the motion. I'm sorry. I was in a hurry to get that second.
Ms. Sullivan, you make a motion? Okay. Second by Kevin. Second. All those in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item number 13, discussion and/or action related to GASB 54 designation of funds. Is that? Alliance? Let me ask you, before we go into that, does anyone want to take a break real quick?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. 5 minutes.
5 minutes?
Or-
Yeah.
5 minutes.
Recess.
Okay, let's go ahead and reconvene and move on. We're on item number 13, discussion and/or action related to GASB 54 designation of funds, and I think Elias here to do that presentation.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so in all of that accountant ease that was going on, in the audit report, the fund balance, the cash, totaled $3,390,775. And back in December, using estimates before the fiscal year ended, using estimates, as Gabby talked about earlier, the board adopted designations for every dollar of it. And so now those are reflected, that board action from December is now, and we usually do one in December, and then we do a final one right after the audit, now that we have all the final numbers. That's in tab 13 of your packet. So we're going from last year to this year, showing you all the changes that took place among the line items. So what Jeff started to talk with y'all about is the different categories of designations: non-spendable, committed, assigned, all of that. They're all explained up on the upper part of the memo, but we only use 3 of them. We use non-spendable, which means it's not in cash form. So that's a fixed accounting number based on the accounts that underlie it. In the committed category, the projects are building maintenance, $100,000, and I'm going down the far right with the numbers to show you here's what it is and here's how much. So for building maintenance, we've got $100,000 set aside. For capital acquisitions and improvements, we have $630,893 set aside. For the legal contingency, that's how it's worded, but it's really our litigation fund. So those two terms have been used interchangeably here. The litigation fund is $919,733, and a cash flow operating reserve started years ago is $596,363, for a total of $2,246,989. I hope everybody sees that over there on the right. That is the total committed. We call that in English board money. In order for us to do anything with any of that, we have to come to the board.
Sorry, on the audited side, on page 12, the litigation fund says 621. 78.
No, I'm sorry. Go to the far right. That's last year. We're bridging from last year to this to
Oh, that's the
22 to
919
23.
that is in the report. Okay.
So that you have a complete disclosure of everything that happened. So it's $919,733 now. Okay. So that's committed. That's the category where the governing board puts money away by resolution, and staff can't touch it until we come back to you. The next category is the assigned category. I call this the chief appraiser pot. And you have to give this money to him so that he can use it to execute the budget. So those, another one, because as you can imagine, South Texas, that would be a nightmare. So it's $100,000 for HVAC replacement when and if. Health insurance overruns, we have had them before. Once the entities give us our money, that's it, it's fixed. If we have health insurance overruns, like a large claim because we're partially self-funded, we've got to have something on hand. We came up with a dollar amount, and now we're at $93,970. Replacement vehicles, that was in the 2023 budget, replacement vehicles, and then we did not do that because we had damage to the building. We had underground pipes that burst, and some of them, the walls weren't even there anymore because those pipes are about 70 years old. Every pipe was replaced. So we did not do vehicles, plus the price of vehicles and the computer components at the time that we wanted to shop around for them. They were saying, you know what, guys, first of all, we can't get you what you want. Second of all, we can't get all the components, and the prices are up. So we said, hold off, we'll ask the board to put it aside, and then when the price is right, maybe we can grab some vehicles. So we put the remainder after the pipe replacement project was paid for. We put the other $118,390 here. Third floor remodel was approved in the 2024 budget for $586,000. That's what it was decided at that time, this is what would pay for it. And the homestead exemption audit was a legislative mandate, and it was not in the 24 budget when adopted, so we had to find it somewhere. So here it is, $97,000. So total assigned category, $995,360. So the non-spendable of $148,000, the committed money, board money, $2.2 million, and the chief money, assigned money of $995,000 totals the $3.3 million at the bottom on the far right. Now, we're asking the board to either reaffirm the prior resolution that was adopted, this reflects that, or you can make whatever changes you want, vote on it, and then we'll have you sign a resolution with your final decision. I know that some of you are new and some of this evolved over a period of years, but this is what it looks like right now.
Any questions or discussion?
Elias, based on what y'all know now, does the 93,970 seem like that's still a good number, or should go up or down?
I think it's fine.
Yeah.
Which number, Susie, you're talking about?
The overruns for health insurance is sort of what you've, I guess, based on what you've seen in the past, right?
Right, because it fluctuates, and we have in self-insurance, you have what's called retention, basically deductible for the employer. It could be $25,000, it could be $35,000, it could be a part of that, depending on that particular claim, and then along comes a second and a third claim. So there's like these aggregating specifics where you look at a combination of claims, and we have to absorb so much to keep next year's rates from skyrocketing. But 93,000, what that was it started at 100,000, and then we had to kind of play with it, and so 93 was what was left. This should be sufficient.
What about the legal contingency fund? Do we need to have it that high, or do you think that could come down a little bit? I mean, what's your thoughts?
Well, normally what we've done, I think 2 years ago, when the courts were closed and we asked for monies, instead of asking for the 500 for litigation fund on the budget, we cut it in half.
Okay.
Just to make sure we had enough monies to do what we do. We also don't want to start depleting that fund because of course, your big lawsuits.
Yeah.
And the money goes towards your experts and to your outside attorneys.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we need to.
Yes.
And we're asking for another 500 in the budget?
Yes.
Let me be clear on that. There is 500,000 in the 2024 budget. This was an additional 500,000 to boost that, because at the time we had all the refinery stuff in motion. We could have it again. We just don't know.
So what would our total amount be? Do we have so we had 919,000 based as of the
December.
audit at 23. Where are we at year to date right now on that amount?
I don't know the balance because we've had some expenses and I didn't come prepared to give you that. But
Okay.
At January 1st, we had the 919,000 plus another
And
500,000.
I'm sure we've spent plenty since then.
We're
So.
about 1.2.
Yeah.
1.1.
Do it.
So we're about 1.2 or 1.1.
Okay.
Now, well, wait a minute. There was I don't have last month's packet. We gave an accounting. We're
Yeah,
supposed
I
to
don't
do it
remember
quarterly.
what it was.
I know, I don't remember, but I can put it on the next agenda.
And it's
to
just
give
a
you
question to see if we need to continue to grow that, or that's really where I'm going with this. Should we just maintain it, or should we, I'll key off of you know, so, all right, questions answered.
It's a wait and see.
I see Melissa's head nodding, so I'm like, yep, okay.
On that litigation fund, do you all use any of that money for the litigation of all your cases? Like say you need,
No,
It's
no, it's
for the refineries.
just for
it's
refineries?
basically your top 10 taxpayers, which is your refineries.
Okay.
Everything else we do in-house for the most part.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Hold on, I may have an answer to that. Okay, let's get you a balance, because nothing's changed in the last month.
Way to go, Neil.
Let the record reflect the numbers. Looking at somewhere.
The balance is one. Both bad, one's just worse. Okay, 1,128,085. So 1.1 million is what's in there too.
Okay. And then we're gonna ask for another $500,000 in this budget?
And that includes the $500,000 in the budget.
Oh, that includes $500,000? Okay.
So we started
That
off the
makes
year
sense.
with 1.4, and now we're down to 1.1. Thank you.
Okay. Any questions? Okay.
Thank you.
Can we have a motion to go ahead and pass the designation of funds, item 13?
You'll have another crack at this in December. For the end of 2024, we do estimates.
I'll make a motion to approve.
Okay, we have a motion by Ms. Sullivan. Any second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Keesnick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 14, discussion and/or action to approve the fiscal 2025 budget.
Okay.
Elias.
Here we go again. Okay, the other thing that's sitting in front of you that looks like this, it's black and white, that's the proposed budget. Nothing has changed. In tab 14, all the actions that have been taken, the steps that are required to approve this budget have been taken. And we have received no comments, and nobody showed up for the hearing last month. There were no comments from that. So there's, and then the calendar, I have it on the calendar for y'all to adopt in August. You still can get one more board meeting after this, but we're asking you to go ahead and adopt because there doesn't seem to be any reason not to.
Any discussions, questions to Mr. Elias?
Thank you for doing all of that, Elias.
Sure.
Can we have a motion approving the fiscal 25 budget?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget.
Motion by Ms. Sullivan. Second by Ms. Shupe. All those in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 15, discussion and/or action related to the second quarter 2024 investment report.
Required by statute to give you a quarterly report because I also am the investment person, the investment officer. Okay, so I know this meeting is getting long, so I'm going to bottom line it. If you guys want to talk some more, let me know, because I can talk about a lot of this all day. Okay, so an average of 6.3 million, because all the quarterly assessments come in during the quarter and they go out during the quarter from the entities. So we had an average of 6.3 million that flowed through the portfolio, and it earned 4.67, or in dollars, 74,237. Versus a benchmark, the 3-month Treasury, of 5.24. We are lagging the benchmark because we were in a rising rate environment. We will always lag that. And then when it goes down, we follow that. All the money in the bank is fully collateralized. We keep it either in Frost Bank or in Tex Pool. Most of it is in Tex Pool. It's a good 77% of it is in Tex Pool, just to leave us some cash to work with. The kind of exciting stuff for those of us that like this kind of stuff is on page 17, or on the next page of the report. The Federal Reserve, as y'all know, they've been doing things with the rates. And the nice thing is it looks like they're going to, bad from an investment standpoint, but good from an economic standpoint. It looks like they're going to start decreasing the interest rates next month. So the housing market should like that. They're expected. In fact, I think Mr. Powell has already come out and said we're going to take the rates down. Yeah. Most of it is kept, the strategy is the same. Most of it is over in Tex Pool to minimize what's in the bank because we earn more in the Tex Pool fund. Consumer Price Index report came in at 0.1, June over May. So I think if the Fed is truly data-driven, like they keep saying, this should be a big clue to them, and I think they're taking it. It's time to bring the rates back down. Probably not as good for the portfolio, but good for America overall, I think.
You need a motion?
Yes. Sure.
Motion to approve the investment report.
Second. Got a motion by Ms. Hopewell, second by Kevin. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item 16, discussion of Board of Director appointment process. Is that be Belinda?
It's me.
I'm sorry, Elias? Okay, Elias.
This is just an information piece because people were asking, several people had been asking different questions. What's the process? What are the changes? How many votes does each entity have? This addresses all of it. This was sent out to the entities on July 20th via email, and all of the board members were copied on it. It's in the packet. If you want me to walk you through it, I can. Or if you want to read it at your leisure, that's fine too. Just the changes begin on page 19 of the packet. Those are the 6 legislative changes related to the appointed positions on this board. We have 3 elected, a tax assessor collector, the rest are appointed. These are the changes that affect those. Then the process, the calendar that we're going to follow is on page 20 in the middle of the page. July 20th, the chief appraiser sends out appointment notice, the appointment process and voting entitlement. That already took place. Nominee resolutions for those of you who are appointed. Please go see your eligible entities. and ask them if they'll nominate you again. They can nominate up to 5. And then, once we get the 5 and we vet them, on October the 7th, we're going to send the ballots out. And then by November 29th, all the entities that are entitled to vote will send in their votes. We'll tally them. And the top 5 vote getters will be the appointed members to assume their spot on the board January 1st, 2025. The voting entitlement, the number of votes, there are 5 positions, each one has 1,000 votes, so there's 5,000 total spread out among these entities. That is on page 20, the lower half of the page. And then nominee qualifications are on page 21, so all the nominees have to fit these qualifications. And then there's a vetting document that I use, it's on page 22. And then a sample resolution that the entities can submit. They can either use this one that we provide them, the smaller entities usually fill out ours, the larger entities do their own. And if anybody wants to dive into anything in detail, that's fine too.
Elias, where does it say they can nominate up to 5?
It's on page 20, hold on, let me find it. Because it's here somewhere, been a while. On page 21, each eligible taxing unit above may nominate 1 person per directorship, and there's 5. Hold on. Receiving resolution. Hold on, I'll find it. Each entity, okay, and on page 19 and number 2, each entity, because it references 5 appointed positions. Each entity may nominate 1 qualified candidate for each seat that will be listed on a single ballot that will be prepared by NCAD.
The reason I ask, I've had a few people call me from the taxing entities, and it wasn't even my appointee, just because they knew me and they said they're confused.
Oh.
And so I didn't know, well, because I guess it doesn't clearly state you can nominate up to 5. I do see that now where you said per seat, but if I've had that many ask me, I don't know if it warrants another reply all and just clearly state, or even a reminder, you know, we need your nominees by September 30th, you can nominate up to 5.
Okay, I can do that.
I think that might help them.
I'll tack it on to
A
the
lot
other
of
one.
questions.
Yeah, because everyone will be confused.
They are right now.
Yeah, I hadn't heard this question yet.
Good point. Okay. Thank you. Any other discussion or questions for Elias on this appointment process? Elias, any more comments from you? I don't think we need a motion on this, right?
No.
Okay. Item 17, we're going to go into executive session. Public notice is given that the Board of Directors may elect to go into executive session anytime during the meeting to discuss matters listed anywhere on the agenda when authorized by the Open Meetings Act, Chapter 551 of the Texas Government Code. Should the Board of Directors elect to go into executive session, the section or sections of the Open Meetings Act authorizing the executive session will be publicly announced by the presiding officer. Upon completion of the executive session, the Board of Directors may take such action as appropriate in open session. Item A, discuss the chief appraiser evaluation and related matters. Section 551.074. The time now is 11:01, and we are going to go into executive session. We're back in open session, and based on our executive session, we are not taking any action at this point. Okay, Rodney, you'll be able to sleep well tonight. And we're going to address these issues later on, so we'll move on. And we're going to go ahead and move on to item number 19, Chief Appraiser Report.
Okay. The certification of the appraisal was very successful, July 25th. Everybody else, all the entities got their certified tax roll shortly right after that. Other than that, we've got the Ad Valorem Legal Counsel coming up conference. That's going to be in San Antonio, August 28th through 30th. We're also going to the IAAO Annual International Conference in Denver, Colorado, the 25th through the 28th. Other than that, guys, I want to commend our staff for doing the work that they do. And I'm hoping that the presentation they gave you all today, especially for our new board members, got a better understanding as to what the appraisal district does. Also, Susie begins to understand what our budget looks like, and it's pretty good at what we do with our budget. It's not as hard as what it can be, but by having proper staff and proper experts to do what we do here, it allows us to do our job a lot easier and a lot better. Also, too, I'll go ahead and let y'all know about the car accident. This was last week, or was it this week?
The 14th.
Last Wednesday.
And it was a T-bone. Somebody ran the stop sign and ran into one of our vehicles. We had 2 passengers there. They were pretty bruised up and sore. Other than that, though, they were pretty good. We had the car in the impound. I think TML, the insurance, is getting their auditor or the adjuster to look at it to see what's going to happen with it. Luckily, the airbags went off on the driver's side where the impact came from, and that eliminated further injuries to the driver. The passenger was shook up as well, but then again, when you're wearing your seatbelt, it allows, bruising and things like that. So luckily, we were good about that. But again, like I said, I have a very good staff to work with. They're very good at what they do. And like I'm emphasizing again that I hope your presentation today gave a little bit more insight as to how we do what we do here. And remember too that what we do here is not on Ronnie's rules. It's the comptroller's rules. We have to abide by that. Otherwise, our concerns are very much with our school districts. If we're not in that bubble like we were talking about earlier, 95 to 105%, then they get their funding cut. And we got 2 years to fix it. Once we fix it, then they're back on track again. So the state is pretty hard on that, on the property value study. And that's what we have to abide by, period. So other than that, I want to say thank you for allowing me to stay here another year or another month next board meeting. But no, I'm not worried about it. I think the work that we do here says a lot for what we do here and what I do here as well. And again, guys, thank you out there for doing what y'all do. Any questions? James?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
John?
Good. Thank you, Ryan.
Susie?
I think it says a lot that you have a lot of employees that have been here a long time. That's good leadership, I think, especially in an organization like this where it's kind of difficult to.
And Kevin?
Nope. That's Kirk Schmidt.
Ms.
We're all
Kevin?
good, thank you.
Be careful on your trip, Foster.
Thank you.
Salute your mom, Marty. Caitlin? Melinda, Melissa?
Yes, sir.
You feeling better? Okay.
Before we adjourn, just real quickly, because I had a comment made earlier, and I hope I don't offend you, Jerry, but Jerry.
Hold on.
No, seriously, on a serious note.
No personal attacks here, LA.
Neil, mute him, please, okay? No, on a serious note, Jerry had some reconstruction foot surgery, and I hope you're okay. I'm going to be sharing that with you, Jerry, but he's on the road to recovery, so it's been a little bit difficult for him in regard to weight bearing, so that's why he's not here. It's 11:20. If he was here, it would probably be 1 o'clock before we finish. Okay, can we have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Kevin, and thank you.
Thank you, guys.